or whatever, but I'm for every bit of them being able to get their operations and everything properly and using that for their medical benefits and stand proudly with them. But they're not going to have the ability to serve in the military because they're going to get disqualified for medical and physical reasons no matter what. Donald Trump has even said as long as they will serve without any kind of hormones or treatments or surgeries or whatever, they are more than welcome to serve in the military. They're just going to disqualify. They're going to be disqualified for medical reasons. It's no different than diabetes or having flat feet or anything like that. It's a disqualifier, period.
What about Mike Pence, the vice president? He seems adamantly opposed to gay rights.
I don't think so. I think in the past he's been involved in things that were not so good for LGBT citizens, but they did an interview with ABC News not more than about a year ago where he said the Trump administration himself will not be discriminating against the LGBTQ individuals just because he's involved in religions who don't exactly think that homosexuality is unsinful or whatever. They don't reject or try to throw us away. They love us. And I've met Pence, and he's signed my hat that said gays for Trump. He's previously worked with our head now of the log cabins. And, there is some religious and confrontation there, but he's not actively trying to take away our rights. In fact, when these religious rights bills came in order, it's been known that he worked hard to make sure that the religious rights bill did not try to step on LGBTQ citizens.
Even though he belongs to a religion that, as you put it, doesn't exactly think that the homosexual community is without sin.
Well, do you think the Muslim community believes the same thing? Because most of those people want us dead.
I don't understand that a Muslim is vice president, however.
Well, you know what? I mean, if you're going to talk about Christianity or whatever, there's plenty of religions out there. And when Democrats, a lot of Democrats are Southern Baptists, a lot of the black people who are Democrats, they're Southern Baptists, those people condemn us gays to hell. They kick us out of their families. They treat us worse than an evangelistical or Pence would ever treat us. And that's on the Democrat side.
You mentioned...
Many religions are against homosexuality, and many religions are fine with homosexuality. The main thing is to recognize that we are American citizens, we are a part of your citizen, and regardless if you like us or hate us in your religion, as long as you leave us alone, we leave you alone, period.
You mentioned the Log Cabin Republicans, which is the United States' largest LGBT Republican organization. They voted against endorsing Trump as a presidential candidate because of his mixed record on gay issues. Your response to that?
No, they did not. What they did is they had no problem with Donald Trump himself. They believed Donald Trump was a great candidate, but at the last minute they decided that they did not like some of the cabinet that he had himself around, which was probably at the time, they probably did not like Mike Pence at the time. But there was a lot of argument with that, and it was also the first time that the Log Cabin Republicans allowed their individual groups to endorse Donald Trump separately, which many of them did. So the national organization said, we endorse Donald Trump, but we can't endorse his cabinet, so we can't recommend. And they waited till maybe 2 weeks before the election because they were torn on that, and they had many a member that were actually never Trumpers and membership that actually were never really Republican to begin with, who a president of the the New York log cabin actually shut down the New York log cabin because it was turned out he was a secret Hillary Clinton supporter.
I'm talking to Peter Boykin, who is founder and president of a group called Gays for Trump. What's your view of Hillary Clinton?
I believe she's committed a lot of possible crimes. She should be basically investigated. I would like to the point where she is told to stand down, quit getting involved in politics and just pretty much retire.
So
I don't think a first lady should be thrown into jail or anything like that, but I do believe their foundation and everything has done a lot of crooked things, and
a lot of people would be surprised to hear a Trump supporter accuse Hillary Clinton of doing crooked things, given the number of investigations and the evidence to date on Mr. Trump.
They can evidence and they can do all sorts of things on Donald Trump all day long because most of that is fake news. The only individuals they found were people who actually did commit crimes, and these were crimes that they committed on their own that had nothing to do with Donald Trump. But like the saying always says, you find me an innocent man and I'll get him guilty if you just try enough. And that's what they're doing. It's just what they're spending almost 2 years, millions and millions of dollars on an investigation that's going nowhere, no collusion. And when they talk about Russian collusion, Manafort himself was involved in uranium war and actually delivered the uranium to Russia, where Hillary Clinton and the whole group of people were the ones that worked with Russia, colluded with Russia, including the leaning over right before Obama was reelected, saying I'll be able to work with Putin more once I'm reelected. They've done nothing. So this whole thing is just a cover-up for everything that they themselves have done. Donald Trump has not colluded directly with Russia. The only thing they've discovered is, yes, just like the United States influences other campaigns and other elections, say, i.e. Venezuela, Russia has basically involved themselves in some of the advertisements because they didn't like Hillary Clinton and they'd rather do business with Donald Trump because he's a better businessman. They're, in fact, by this, they're actually causing more problems with relations between the United States and Russia because Donald Trump can't actually be friendly with Russia because then they keep claiming collusion. The two superpowers should be friends. They should get along. Look what's happening now with the nuclear 1984 agreement, where we're basically going to have to walk away from it because, you know, now Donald Trump has to be all big and bad against Russia, and it's ridiculous.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I don't intend to do all of it, but just let me ask you this thing. Donald Trump said that he had no business dealings with Russia. Turns out he did have business dealings with Russia. Is that not a lie?
I believe as Donald Trump if you're talking about campaign business dealings, no.
I'm talking about
If you're talking about international dealings, internationally dealt with a lot of individuals. I'm pretty sure that he probably wanted the Trump Tower or some kind of Trump building in Russia, and at some time he probably did deal with Russia.
He said he had no business.
No, stop shouting. He ran for office, and as a private individual, he can do whatever the hell he wants to.
Stop shouting at me. As a political candidate and subsequently president, Donald Trump said that he had no business dealings with Russia. It turns out that at the time he said that, he did have personal business dealings in Russia. Was that not a lie?
I don't know about that. Okay. All I know is he might have not had dealings because him as an individual personally doesn't probably do most of his dealings. Maybe one of his companies or somebody else was working with Russia. I'm pretty sure of that. But again, there's no crime committed when him as a private individual was working to try to open a building or something with Russia, because as a private citizen, he can do whatever the hell he wants to do.
Is there
no crime in it.
Is there anything that Donald Trump has done that you disapprove of at all?
The only thing I can disagree with was the original Twitter anti-trans in the military tweet, because I think that needed to be delivered a little bit differently. That kind of was a hurt, and truthfully, I would have picked a different vice president than Mike Pence, because it's hard to deal with someone who's had a past against LGBT individuals. Even though he is now trying to prove differently, it's still hard, and it doesn't make it easier when you have somebody like Karen Pence going back to work for a very Christian organization who is not only against homosexuals, but they're against, everything. They're against people who do porn or watch porn or anything like that. So it's just a mixed message there. It's very hard to deal with that issue, but he's shown some headway. That's a setback. So I don't disapprove of what Donald Trump does. I don't like some of the cabinet. I'll agree with the log cabin. I don't like some of the cabinet with their dealings and some of their decisions. And I also think Donald Trump made a horrible choice with Jeff Sessions, which I met before he became AG, before Donald Trump was elected. That just ended up panning out very badly.
You didn't object to his misogyny at all, his attitude towards women?
Considering Donald Trump has been a leader in pageants and owning pageants and running pageants, and you've never really had a pageant person come up and say that he's done anything, and you know damn well he's probably been behind the scenes and everything like that, and what his comments have been was behind the scenes that should have never been recorded, because there's plenty of things that people say behind the scenes that they would never say in public. And even if you listen to that tape, he said, "Well, I could have done this, I could have done that. You can do that if you're rich, but I don't do that. The worst thing I ever did was give somebody a kiss."
He didn't say.
I'm not worried about that. And the misogynistic stuff you're talking about that comes from, let's say, Bill Clinton or basically Obama when he was president was showing off his erection on the plane. They had that video. You got Joe Biden going around groping little kids.
Wait.
You know,
just stop.
Plenty of Democrats.
Stop for a moment. You've already mentioned the words fake news. You're telling me that Barack Obama was showing his erection off on the airplane?
I watched the video. There was a video.
The video has been... The video.
Yes, he was on the airplane, and he had a very big erection, and he was pointing at it, and the people were laughing. He was clowning on the airplane.
Yeah, you've said that. The video has been completely discredited.
No, I watched the video. It's a real video.
I know you watched the video because the video was fake.
It's not fake. It was real.
Oh, come on.
I've seen multiple angles. There's different videos out there.
So fake news is stuff that you don't like, but real news is stuff that feeds into your views.
You manipulate whatever angle you want to, and I've seen lots of items on the internet that they claim is fake or whatever, or discredited, that are very, very real, that has been very much turned around and said, "Oh, we said it wasn't fake, but we've been proven wrong." Yeah, there's been a lot that they've claimed that at first. Anything to protect dear leader Obama or anybody from the Democratic side, because they try to cover it up. I mean, we have a governor of Virginia who runs around in black faces and tries to cover that up, you know, who's sitting around talking about another individual, you know, covering things up all day long. It's real news when it gets discovered, and it's been out there. I've seen no discrediting of that video. I've seen that video in multiple areas. But that doesn't take away from the fact that people voted for Bill Clinton and all the stuff that he did, and all the other individuals that are currently, like Cory Booker, who basically assaulted a man sexually in a bathroom. There is so much that the Democratic Party has done, and we're not even going into the whole pedophiles and pedophile island and all that's been going on. All that's proven.
Yeah, that was Peter Boykin from a group called Gays for Trump. A lot of you didn't like him. Rosemary says the man was a fool and a bully. And why are you talking to this guy? Well, we're talking to him because a lot of you have accused us of never talking to anybody who supported Trump. And admittedly, he may not have been the best example to choose, but I thought it was pretty interesting to hear. The fifth day of the major fire raging across hillsides in Tasman is underway. Over 1,000 people have so far been evacuated from their homes. Over 2,000 hectares of rural and forestry land have been burnt since the fire began in Pigeon Valley on Tuesday afternoon. These fires are now the biggest aerial firefighting operation in New Zealand history. Our reporter Alex Ashton is at Appleby School, where a media conference and a community meeting is scheduled. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Kim. How are you?
I'm well. What's the situation there right now?
So right now we're in a classroom at Appleby School. We're just waiting for the media conference to start. By the looks of things, we're not far off. This is just sort of one of the regular updates they do. So the last one was yesterday at 5:30. And we just get a kind of a run through from everyone involved. So civil defence normally starts, then we have fire and emergency, the police give a bit of an update, and the mayors were there yesterday. But I've just seen Maureen Pugh and Nick Smith, MPs, walking in as well.
I imagine that everybody was working very hard overnight trying to contain this fire, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it hasn't stopped, and the resourcing didn't drop overnight. The only difference was that the helicopters didn't go up, so they would have started up this morning. But I think overnight and just over the last day 5, as you said in your introduction there.
You must be seeing a few tired and ragged people around the place, Alex.
Yeah, seeing and hearing. You can hear it in people.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roger Ball. I'm the Nelson Tasman Civil Defence Group Controller. We are into day 4 of a declaration of local emergency regarding the Pigeon Valley fire. There is no prospect of the declaration of emergency being lifted at this time. The situation remains dynamic, changeable. There remains a threat to life and property. Last night in the Pigeon Valley, at the Pigeon Valley fire, the fire continued to burn actively. Over 100 personnel worked hard throughout the night to fight the fire and create a control line with fire breaks now right along the perimeter. My colleagues from Fire and Emergency New Zealand will discuss and answer questions in more detail. In Nelson, at the Walters Bluff fire, crews remained on site overnight after a fire broke out at 3 o'clock yesterday. The fire is still under control and crews are there this morning. In Wakefield, 2 evacuations have been completed for Wakefield residents. Around 860 properties have been evacuated. That is most of Wakefield. Together with the 200 properties evacuated in relation to the Pigeon Valley fire, we currently have an estimate of over 1,000 properties that have been evacuated, and we are managing something in the order of 2,500 people who are now out of their homes. As a precautionary measure, we've asked that remaining residents of Wakefield should be prepared to evacuate. This is a precautionary measure, and we will do our absolute best to communicate and stay in touch with those residents. People who have evacuated are asked to register in person at the Civil Defence Centre at Saxton Field Stadium in Stoke, or if they cannot get there in person, please ring us on 03 543 8400. If you have an emergency situation, please call 111. Residents in the rural areas of Wakefield who are outside the evacuation zone will have managed access from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. today. The New Zealand Defence Force will be running escorted convoys through the portion of State Highway 6 that runs through Wakefield Township. This will allow access through Wakefield for residents. The highway remains closed to all other traffic, which would continue to use the signposted detour through the Motueka Valley. The escorted convoys will be running straight through the town with no stopping or diversions. They are not an opportunity for residents to check on property. My colleague from the New Zealand Defence Force will be able to explain this in more detail. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose that we take questions as we go briefly, so if you have anything for me, but if it relates to one of the functions of my colleagues, I'll ask them to pick that up as we go through. Any questions for the controller?
Oh, Mr. Bull, you say that there's no prospect of the emergency being lifted. How long do you foresee this situation continuing?
I don't think that we're in a position to speculate on that. The situation is very changeable. It is dynamic. Although good progress has been made within the fire zone, it is very changeable, as we have seen, and in recent days we've had outbreaks on Rabbit Island and north of Nelson City. We are not prepared to make any estimates at this time as to when the emergency might end.
So with the control lines in place right around the perimeter, is that a sign that you're managing to contain it? Is the fire actually growing?
There are signs of good progress there, but I will let Fire and Emergency New Zealand discuss that with you further.
What's the difference between managed access and evacuation?
So with managed access, we're referring to providing a mechanism to enable a resident to go back in if it is safe, to check on property and perhaps check on livestock and then come back out again. It is a temporary measure.
Mr. Bull, how many residents made use of the evacuation centre last night?
I don't have that figure in front of me, but let me check on that and we'll get that to you before the end of the session. I omitted one point of detail. I should have let you know that we are holding 2 community engagement meetings this morning. You're probably aware of that. The first one starts this morning here at the school at Appleby at 9 a.m. We're having a follow-up meeting at 11 a.m. with further residents, and that's taking place at the Hope Community Church on Ranzau Road. Any further questions for me?
Just one further. The closure of State Highway 6, how many people or vehicles would you expect to use that road in a day?
Sorry, I don't have a number, but if you'd like to repeat that question for my police and NZDF colleagues, they might be able to give you an estimate.
Probably about 1,000.
Thank you. I'll hand over to John Sutton from Fire and Emergency. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm John Sutton. I'm the Incident Control for the Pigeon Valley fire incident that's running here. The fire was active last night, although the weather conditions were favourable for us and from a control sense. There was high humidity, very light winds, but the fire was just driven by the topography and was particularly active in that Zulu area, and it actually, although as of this morning the entire fire is still within what control lines we have constructed, it did move internally and it breached one of our internal lines, which happened to also be the trigger point for the Wakefield evacuation. There's not too much reason for concern at the moment. It's moving very, very slowly at present, and we're working very hard on it, as you can probably imagine. As a result of that breach, and also with new weather forecast for today, we've recalculated the rate of spread, and we now predict at the current, with the current weather, it would take 6 hours for that fire to burn to the river flats from where it is. Yes, and we're just currently carrying out the first recce's of the day this morning, and as a result of that, we'll be able to recalculate the fire area and monitor what if there's been any significant permanent growth. And we're just getting into the stage now by the use of our own drones, which can work at night to monitor hotspots, and we will be able from today onwards to start giving percentages of containment around the fire. My colleague Grant Hayward and I are happy to answer any questions about the fire activities.
Mr. Sutton, how far is the fire from Wakefield Township in the distance of kilometres?
It would probably be less than 10 kilometres.
Is that close to, yesterday we spoke about there being 2 trigger points. You mentioned you've hit one of them. Is there another trigger point that could be reached? Or?
No, that is the last trigger point.
So you said it's 6 hours from burning to the river flats. Does that
Yes.
mean it could, how long could it take to get to Wakefield, for example, in the current weather conditions?
Once it gets to the river flats, you're talking about, what, less than 2 kilometres?
Yeah, less than 2 kilometres, so
Yeah.
essentially it will be on the town at that stage.
Yes, I mean, like the rates of spreads you were getting when the winds were blowing strong 2 days ago, and when this fire started, we were exceeding a kilometre. We were exceeding a kilometre per hour.
Excuse me, why is the river flat significant? Why is that an area that you were monitoring or looking at?
Once it gets to the river flats, is a change in vegetation type. It's a lot shorter. It's sort of a bit of a two-edged sword, though. It increases our opportunities for sort of direct attack on the fire, but unfortunately, if it's been driven by a northerly, you can't put people in front of the fire. So it's yeah, our chances of actually getting the fire out increase dramatically, but you've got to be very careful about how you go about it.
So if it hits that scrub, it could then burn quickly towards Wakefield.
Yes, right? Yes, but yeah, you just cannot put people in front of a fire. You can't see anyway. Yeah.
Where did it burn overnight? Was there a new area it moved into, or was it inside the same?
No, the fire was already there. I think it's just that you know, fire progresses faster uphill than along the flat, and it was just the terrain that you know, the fire was heating and preheating its fuel, and then suddenly we've got onto a wee bit of uphill slope, and it just made a move, and it actually went across. We'd put a bit of temporary retardant line on in the early days of the fire, and we worked really hard to try and keep it there, but it actually beat the night crews and got through, unfortunately.
So the perimeter hasn't moved, but it's not fair to say that it's contained, is it?
It's not contained. So a control line is a bulldozer line and tied around the fire. So we've almost got that, but that becomes a tactical barrier that we work from. We work internally in the fire from there. I would say it's contained if we've got we can say for 30 metres inside that control line, there is no heat. That's what this containment will be. And how we do that is we use a drone at night, which has got IR capability, which will be able to accurately assess where the heat is. So it's yeah, it's a pretty precise science.
How are we looking for the next few days? Are you expecting it to burn right through?
I'm worried about tomorrow, to be honest. We are in quite a good place strategically for today, but we're in the hands of gods when it comes to wind. If we have winds that get anywhere near 50 k's today, we're in trouble.
Why are you worried about tomorrow?
Because they are predicted to be 50 k's tomorrow afternoon.
So it could spread even further.
Yeah.
And so how vital is that work today to try and you know, make sure that tomorrow isn't as brutal as that?
I think you've just said it. It's vital today.
Mr. Southern, are you able to sort of explain to us what those crews on the ground are doing? Are they up there, are they digging?
Yes.
Is it watering?
Yes.
What work are they doing on the ground?
What they would have been doing last night was there's a line on the ground, and the fire would have been spotting over that. The embers would have been carrying over that, and they jump on those spots so they can't manifest into a fire. The machinery would have been working on those fire breaks, trying to make them wider, and probably getting to any of the bigger spots. They'd be putting a ring around those spots.
How difficult is it to create a fire break like that, given it's in a forest and you've got trees in the way?
In this particular area, it's almost impossible on the southern side because it's almost a cliff, so we couldn't.
What's the weather looking like for this afternoon?
At the moment, it's predicted to be around about, I think it's 20 kilometres, gusting up to 30, which is much like yesterday. And we got through yesterday. I'm hoping we'll do the same today.
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry to interrupt. I'm just conscious of time. We've got a community meeting that's going to kick off at 9, and we've got a couple of other speakers that we'd like to get through. So perhaps if I could invite any last question for fire and emergency, and then we'll go on to police.
You just say you're really worried about tomorrow. What is the biggest fear? You know, what's the scenario if the winds pick up and they're over 50 k's? What are we talking about in terms of damage or further evacuations? Or
We have got that calculated and mapped, but what it means is it'll cross the river into Wakefield, and it will also go up, I'm not sure the road, I think it's North Pigeon Valley Road. It will go in sort of two directions. That's what we're predicting.
Can helicopters fly 50 km/h winds?
Big pardon?
Can helicopters operate in those stronger winds?
They can fly in 50k winds, but they're pretty maxed out much above that 70 or 80. They probably won't be able to fly.
Thank you. I think we need to keep to time. Apologies, gentlemen. I'll invite police to speak.
So good morning again. Zane Hooper, Acting District Commander, Tasman District. We successfully completed late last evening the orderly evacuation of Wakefield. This was a significant undertaking, and I would like to thank the community for their assistance in that process. The process was broken down ultimately into two stages and led to the evacuation of approximately 570 homes in that area, which in normal conditions houses about 3,000 residents. Police resourcing has been increased. There are now over 110 police staff from outside of Tasman operating to support us in this operation. 40 recruits from the Police College have been sworn and sent to Tasman, along with additional staff from the Central District, now taking into account 3 policing districts that are supporting this operation. In addition, there was an additional request from New Zealand Police, through the Controller for New Zealand Defence Force support. At the end of today, we anticipate there will be over 110 New Zealand Defence Force staff supporting the operation. You're already aware State Highway 6 remains closed but with limited access. We're constantly reviewing the closure of State Highway 6, and I would ask that everyone just keeps referring for updates in either the media, the Civil Defence website or the New Zealand Transport Authority website. My colleague from New Zealand Defence Force can speak more to the limited access that's being provided. We'd like to thank the community for all the support we're being provided. Iwi yesterday, the local iwi met and have opened up marae to support people who don't have anywhere to stay. In addition, the support we're being provided when we go around our evacuation processes is greatly appreciated. We are evacuating people to keep people safe from the fire. We understand the community's desire for answers in terms of how the fire started. Rest assured that police, along with our FENS colleagues, will be following up all lines of inquiry that are available to us. However, our focus remains contributing to the emergency response and ensuring public safety as a priority and providing patrols in the areas that are affected. Overnight, there are a large number of patrols facilitated by the New Zealand Defence Force and the police in all the affected areas, and we would reinforce that if you do not have any business being in an evacuated area, you are not to go there. Thank you.
In terms of that ready to evacuate zone, how many people fall into that area?
So that area is now quite large. That is work that's currently undertaken. I haven't been able to get a briefing on that this morning, but overnight planning was undertaken in conjunction with the New Zealand Fire Service, and again the trigger points have been established in relation to when we would need to start evacuating people. That's a slightly different geographic area, so and not as dense as Wakefield. There are rural roads that facilitate access to that community in a different structure to Wakefield, so as a result they can be easier to evacuate than mass housing in a subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you, Zane. I invite New Zealand Defence Force to make a statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Kim, NZDF. We're here to support the emergency services. Currently, we're operating with the police to provide cordons and security in Wakefield, as mentioned. So State Highway 6 going through Wakefield will be cordoned off with limited access for local residents that are in Wakefield area. And for alternative options for the rest of the Nelson community, we expect them to commute through the Motueka highway. We're currently prioritising safety of the community, so we're putting these preventative measures. They're constantly being reviewed to make them more efficient and cause minimum disturbance to the community members. But still, we're going to be prioritising community safety. Thank you.
Where did the soldiers come from? Are they Burnham?
Yep, so we got 50 plus personnel deploying from Burnham this morning to provide catering support to the first responders for all agencies. And currently we have some Air Force servicemen and women that are from Woodburn. They're in vicinity of this area. So,
what will the convoys actually be doing? Are they potentially only just driving through it?
yes, so local residents who need to get out of the area that are living in streets that are just branching off to State Highway 6 that can get guided on so they can get onto the traffic safely. Also, so that they don't have to commute 1.5 hours to go all the way around to Motueka.
So this is not an opportunity to go back to properties and look at things?
No, this is purely for safety.
Thank you. Yes. Now look, in brevity of time, because we're just about out of time, just very briefly from me, you've heard the briefing this morning. You've heard that there is still active concerns about the fire close to Wakefield. I can assure anyone who is just questioning what's going on, the primary focus is keeping people and properties safe. So people come first, properties second. Everything is being done, and I can assure you that the firefighting effort, the Defence Force, the police, everybody who's involved are doing a tremendous job. I'm absolutely in awe of what they're doing, but I'm equally aware that the concern starts to rise from people, particularly if they've got stock. We'd like to get home, so there is a process for them to contact the authorities concerned and find out when they can do that. But this is still a very active fire, and from people from away, it's difficult to realise how dry it is and what the risk means. And you've all seen this over the last couple of days. The fire can change very quickly. If wind changes, it can change very quickly. You've heard the fire authorities explaining what they're doing, and so it's all being done. But we're still in a very active situation. We're still in a volatile situation. I really would like to thank everybody in the community who's been evacuated for being as helpful and supportive as possible, and understanding, even though they want to get back to their properties, the constraints that are under. It is likely to be days that the primary focus and volatility will still be there, even if we have good conditions all of that time. So residents need to just be aware that this is not going to be over overnight. But look, we've probably got 30 seconds for questions if you have any.
The Mayor of Nelson reassured people yesterday that this operation was well resourced. There were enough people. We hear that there are more personnel have arrived. Is it adequately resourced now the situation appears to be so dire?
No, it's absolutely well resourced. As you heard, there were 100 firefighters out overnight. We've got 22 helicopters, 2 fixed-wing planes. I mean, you can't stack many more aircraft in the air, so it's really well serviced. Civil Defence and central government have been incredibly supportive. Their message is, if you need more resources, tell us sooner rather than later. They are doing that. People have come in, so we're well resourced. We've just got a really volatile fire. So happy for you to contact me later, which will probably be this afternoon because we're going into these 2 community meetings. So thank you very much for coming along and covering this as well as you have. Thank you.
And the world may be a better place. Nelson, you may well be right. James Crabb is here after 9. He is a pioneer of the classical accordion. He started playing the accordion at the age of 4, at which point I imagine it must have been bigger than he was. Here's the news.